In this video, we will show you how to replace your rear brake caliper on the Chevy Trailblazer. This will be located behind your rear wheel. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing you need to do is safely raise and support the rear of the vehicle so the wheels are off the ground. Once you've done so, continue on to removing your center cover. We'll use a trim tool for this. After that, remove all 6 of your 19mm lug nuts and then the wheel. Now with the wheel out of the way, we have a clear view of our rear brake caliper. To remove this, we are going to have to open up the brake fluid system. Let's start at the bleeder screw right here. Make sure you have a collection bucket under the area. Use a 10mm, we'll open this up. The next thing we'll do after that is make our way into the passenger compartment and press that brake pedal all the way to the floor and hold it there. Once you've done that, we'll continue on to removing the banjo bolt. That's the bolt that goes through the flex hose directly into the caliper, holding the two together. Keep in mind there could still be fluid in this area, so have your collection bucket underneath. You should find you have 2 gaskets in this area, one in between the flex hose and the caliper, and the other one's in between the banjo bolt and the flex hose. Sometimes for these gaskets, you can pull them right off. Other times you may have to hold on to the gasket with some pliers, and then use your 11mm to unscrew the banjo bolt. There's one of the gaskets. We'll set that aside for recycling. Remove the banjo bolt from your flex hose. And remove the gasket. It might be on the banjo bolt or it might be on the flex hose. Either way, it needs to come off of there and be replaced during the installation process. There goes that one. Now we'll just go ahead and clean down both sides of that flex hose. Double check to make sure you do not have any of the pre-existing gasket or anything else in that area. Assuming that looks nice and clean, let's go ahead and set the flex hose aside for now, and we'll continue on removing the caliper. Now we'll start taking the caliper off of the bracket so we can remove the pads. You'll find that you have 2 14mm headed bolts holding the caliper to the bracket. We'll remove the pair. Remove and inspect the hardware. As for the first bolt, we'll just start it back in a couple threads, continue on to the second. We'll remove the caliper from the area. Now we can remove the pads, take hold of them, and slide them right out of place. Give them a quick inspection. Make sure it doesn't look like they're damaged or worn at an odd angle. Continue on to your 2 18mm headed bolts that hold the bracket. Remove the bracket from the area. Give your brake rotor a close inspection. Okay, let's prepare our brand new caliper for installation. Remove your 2 14mm caliper slider bolts. Remove the caliper from the bracket. We'll set that aside for now. The next thing we'll continue on to do is to remove each one of the sliders. Take hold of the slider and the boot and separate the two. I'll just wipe off this existing grease. Apply some high temperature caliper lubricant to this. Make your way all the way up into the groove and coat the entire shaft. Once you've done so, go ahead and take that and slide it right back into that boot. There we go. Just double check it, make sure it is secured. Do the same to the other one. Get up into that groove. There we are. We'll just work that around. Now we'll pay attention to each of these areas. Apply a thin amount of high temperature caliper lubricant to this area and install your new caliper tin. When we put this in place, you want to pay attention to the center area here. That will fit into this area of the bracket. You'll have to squeeze it in. Get this in position. Lock it in with the center. Double check to make sure your tin's completely secured. Do the exact same thing on the other side of the bracket. Check that tin. We'll set this side aside for now. Continue back to this area. Now for this part of the caliper, you're going to lubricate directly on the piston and then along the backside of each of these two ears. This will help with vibration dampening and noise reduction. Okay, let's get over to the vehicle. Let's get this bracket in place. We'll install each of our two 18mm bolts, snug them up, and then torque those to 148 foot-pounds. Now it's time to install our brake pads. Make sure you install them in the same position as when you had removed them. Double check to make sure they can move around freely inside that caliper bracket. Now we can install the caliper onto the bracket. We'll be careful sliding this over the pads. Start in each of those two mounting bolts, snug them up, and torque those to 23 foot-pounds. Take one of your brand new gaskets and slide it right onto that banjo bolt. Now we'll put that bolt straight on through the flex hose and put the other gasket on the opposite side of that flex hose. So now we've got one on each side. Go ahead and take that and put it in positional on the back side of the caliper, start it in by hand, snug it up. Now that we have that snug, let's torque this to 27 foot-pounds. There we are. We'll just double check to make sure that's completely secured to the caliper itself. Now let's make our way under the hood. We'll be looking for the master cylinder. That's right along the driver's side firewall. We want to pay attention to the fluid level in here. Make sure it's topped off up to the maximum line. The fluid that you need to use is .3 fluid. You can see it right on the top of this cap here. You don't want to use anything else except for maybe .4, but typically you just want to stick with the .3. Now the next thing we need to do is gravity bleed the system. To do that, we'll be taking the cap and just resting it along the top so no dirt or debris makes its way in, but it's not closed tight and making a seal. Now let's make our way back to the caliper. The next thing we'll do is make sure we have a collection bucket under this area because we will be gravity bleeding the brakes. To do that, remove your rubber cover. We will be reusing this, so go ahead and set that aside. Now we'll use a 10mm to open up the bleeder screw. You don't need to fully remove it, you just want to turn it a couple turns and then let the fluid start trickling out. This may take a minute. There we are. At this point, we have a steady trickle of fluid coming from here, so we'll go ahead and close that bleeder screw. Now, once you have that closed, we're going to continue on with a manual bleed. For this, it's going to be easiest having 2 people. You can do it solo if you need to, but having a second person does make it a little easier. The person inside of the vehicle is going to pump up that brake pedal till it's nice and firm and hold it there. While holding pressure on the brake pedal, they're going to let us know they're holding, and we'll open up this bleeder screw. You should see fluid and possibly a couple air bubbles making its way out. Once the fluid stops, close the bleeder screw and repeat the process. What we are paying attention to is the fluid coming out. We want to wait until we see a steady trickle of fluid with no air bubbles. Even one air bubble can cause an issue with the brake system. Go ahead and pump up that brake pedal. Now while they're holding, I'll open this up. We will see fluid coming out of here. Got a lot of air out of that one. Go ahead and pump.
Holding. More.
Still had an air bubble. Go ahead and pump.
Holding. More.
Pump.
Holding. Floor.
Now that last time right there, we did not have any air coming out of the system. If we do see some air, we're going to have to continue the bleeding process. Otherwise, we'll just go ahead and clean up our mess. Go ahead and pump up that brake pedal.
Holding. Floor.
Yep, got a little bit of air on that one. All right, let's continue our process here. Okay, you can release that brake pedal. Now at this point, we found that we had no air coming out of the system 2 times in a row. If you wanted to, you can continue the process, but we should be good to go. Go ahead and clean up your mess and reinstall your bleeder screw cover. Let's make our way back to the master cylinder. Top this off right up to that maximum line. Once you're sure it's full, go ahead and reinstall your cap and make sure it's completely secure. Now we can reinstall our wheels, start on all 6 of those lug nuts, and we'll snug them up. Let's get the wheel back on the ground. With the wheel safely on the ground, let's torque these to 103 foot-pounds in a crisscross manner. torqued. Now we'll reinstall our center cover. On that cover, you should find that you have this area that protrudes out, unlike any other. Look in your wheel. You'll find the area that it fits into. Align that properly and drive this into place. Okay friends, we showed you how to do one side of your rear brakes. At this point, you want to go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other side of the vehicle. Once you've done that, pump up that brake pedal till it's nice and firm. Take your vehicle for a road test and listen for any funny noises. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.